Oh, there it is.
Okay, guys, here we go. Welcome to Echo Means Business User Advisory Group Live. I'm Nick Phillips with P&H Lawn Care, and we are streaming on Facebook Live, Instagram, and of course YouTube. Tonight, Brian, I'll let you tell a little bit about yourself. Kick it off.
Well, I'm Brian Linson. I am the owner of BL Landscapes, and we are located in the on Whidbey Island in Washington State. We do just about everything: hardscapes, softscapes, water features, irrigation, retaining walls, fences, decks, you name it.
Good deal. Sounds like you got a lot going on up there.
Yes, sir.
All right. And Mike, tell us a little bit about yourself.
So I'm Mike Arch. I'm located in Lake in the Hills, Illinois, which is the northwest suburbs of Chicago. And we do basically full lawn care with the exception of pesticide treatments and fertilization. We do softscapes, any kind of mulch planting, anything that you can think of on that front. And I also do snow removal in the winter. So
You got it year round. On the softscape, soft mulch.
that's an inside joke, guys.
Yeah.
Apparently, it's no float cypress. That's what
Yeah,
you need.
so it is. Good deal. Good deal. Well, tonight we are going to be talking about tips for team management. I'm really going to be leaning on these guys because, as all of y'all know, P&H Lawn Care is just a name. It's my kids, but because I'm a solo operator. So let's get this started. Let's check and see if we had any questions there. What do you look for as in a new team member? Let's say you're hiring, you're me, and you're going to be doing your first hire. Is experience where they've already worked in lawn care? Would you prefer that, or would you prefer somebody that hasn't been, so you can train them the way you want to do it, want them to be? I guess.
I mean, for me personally, I have gone both routes over the years. I've hired guys that were quote unquote experienced or had a lot of knowledge, and I've hired guys that were green as they can be with zero experience in the field. And for me personally, I find that I really like to get the guys that have no experience. For me, it's easier to teach them the way that you want things to be done, and to kind of instill the values that you have in someone else, without kind of butting heads with someone who thinks that they know everything that they need to know. So it's a little easier to train them to have the same quality that you're looking for. I think if you start with guys with no experience.
Can see that definitely. So, is there more conflict, I guess, that comes with the guys that have worked for somebody else and doing it the way the previous company did, and now I guess it would just be easier to train them green than to break the old habits that they developed at the previous job.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I think that's been my experience. I mean, I think that there are guys that have experience that are still trainable and that are great to add to your team. But um, like I said, if you're looking for a long time crew member, someone that you're going to invest time into to train them, I like I said, I prefer to start with someone who has little experience or no experience. Someone that's willing to learn and looking to learn, and not really set in the ways of that they're doing things.
What about you, Mike? What do you think on that?
So, I mean, one of the things that I would deal with first is know yourself. You got to know who you are before you can start bringing in other team members. And when you do bring other team members, start becoming an open book. And I can give some examples about that. In particular, from my own work experience, I actually had experience when I was working in retail. My grandmother had passed away, and I had to tell the store manager about it. So I need some time off. And the first words out of his mouth, "Oh, geez, I got all this going on." And it wasn't as big of a deal because I understood who the store manager was. I mean, horrific experience, and first words you'd like to hear out of your mouth was, "Oh, I'm sorry, we'll get everything taken care of." But yeah, I had to understand he had a extremely high anxiety with everything, so which is one of the reasons why he was good at his job. But I had to understand who he was and know who he was, and he knew who he was. So immediately he's like, "Oh, I'm so sorry. I mean, I'm just thinking about what's going on in my head and everything I have to deal with." So he can kind of backtrack on that right away, but just kind of know who you are, and you're not perfect, and neither is anybody else. But if you know how you're not perfect, you can at least share that with your team members so that they're not running out the door when something like that happens. There's another occasion where I was working for a manager. I got injured on the job, and what ended up happening was I'm going into the meeting after getting injured so that he can write up the report. And the first things that all the guys are telling me before I go in is like, he's gonna yell. He's probably gonna yell, but don't worry about it because he's not yelling at you. He's upset about the situation. He's upset about all the paperwork he's got to do. First thing I do, I sit down. That's the first thing the manager says to me. He's like, I might end up yelling, but I'm not mad at you. Don't worry about it. I'm just thinking about everything I've got to do. So it's about knowing yourself and how you deal with that so that you can extend that and let your guys know that. So, because the number one thing that they're concerned about basically at the end of the day is making sure that they have a paycheck to provide for their family. And they don't want you screaming and yelling to think you did something wrong and that now their job is in jeopardy. So that's probably one of the key things is just know yourself and be an open book to your crew members so that they know how you're going to deal with things and just be able to tell them, hey, this is how it's going to go down. It's nothing against you. Sometimes, a lot of times, it's just how I am. So I would say that would probably be one of the key factors is just before you even deal with anybody else, know yourself and know how you're going to react to people.
It kind of comes down to everybody's got a different management style. Like there's the ones that bark orders. There's the one because we've all had jobs outside of lawn care and had a manager, and each manager that you've worked for has had a different way of motivating their employees, I guess, for lack of a better term. Screamers, some lead by example. Some like to sit back behind the desk and be Mr. Important and bark the orders. Whenever I was in retail, I was actually an assistant manager. Store manager said, how come you can get the employees to do stuff for you and I tell them to do something and they won't do it? And I was like, well, I just start doing something. And if they're good people and good workers, which I trust that you think that you good workers, they're not going to sit on their can or stand around while you're working and watch you do it. They get in, and because they are good people, they can't watch somebody else do something while they're not doing anything. So I just started doing whatever task at hand. Where his style of management was, I want to give them a list of what to do, go sit in my office, come back an hour later and see if it was done or not. So my form of management was lead by example or lead by doing, I guess. Like, Brian, what do you find more effective? Giving them a list or standing there, not necessarily babysitting them, but set the tone for how the day's going to go?
Yeah. So for me, I mean, I've always been a real hands-on owner, boss, whatever you want to call it. I enjoy what I do, so I'm on the site with my guys every day. And I am kind of I'm the guy who teaches my crew by doing whatever needs to be done and showing them how I do it. A real, a visual, physical teacher, I would say. I think the guys tend to learn best that way by watching and instead of just telling them. And then, as far as delegating tasks and stuff, I kind of the way I lead, I always tell people it's kind of like being a conductor in an orchestra. I'm pointing directions, say go do this, you go do this. You're always trying to make sure that your crew is working efficiently and that you're keeping all your guys busy. and that everyone stays on task. So, like I said, I always liken it to being a conductor because you are constantly just directing people, and I think that makes a big difference between a good owner and an owner who's sitting behind a desk. It's really easy to send out a list of things that need to be done, and for unless you have built up a really good crew guys that are leading. You're going to have people fall off it. People get distracted. A lot of guys just need to know exactly what they need to be doing, and they'll stay busy. And so I think it's part of being a good owner, and is making sure that everybody has their jobs delegated and they know what tasks they're supposed to be on.
It would be kind of hard to sit in the truck and tell somebody how to run a weed eater if you're not out there with them, or build a deck, or put
Yeah,
up
exactly.
fencing. I could see that. Micah, if you were hiring tomorrow, what are you looking for in an employee? What would stand
Well,
out to you?
who are you directing that to?
You, Mike. I'm
Me?
sorry.
Okay. Actually, we'll go pick up a little bit on Red Rock Maintenance's question. How do you pick a crew leader on this? And as far as a new hire, that gets kind of tricky. But if you're dealing with an existing crew and looking to promote somebody, what I would recommend doing is don't go to the loud, boisterous guy necessarily that's very friendly with everybody, that seems that everybody likes. What you actually want to do is look at your crews. Usually it's the guy that's got his head down, that's quiet, that you might actually want to look at promoting to crew leader. The reason why, the guy is just out there trying to get the job done. There's a job to get done. He wants to get it done. He's willing to do whatever it takes to get the job done. That's going to be your best crew leader, the guy that's going to lead by example and doesn't need to say a whole lot of anything to anybody. That's probably going to be one of your better leaders. And I mean, one example that I can give you is, as a manager in a restaurant, I would never be able to ask a employee to do something that I wasn't willing to do myself. If the bathrooms needed to be cleaned, and every once in a while I would actually go in there and clean the bathroom because the employee can't get in there or something like that, didn't have the time. So I would go and do it myself. The employees see that kind of stuff, and they know that the person that's leading them is willing to do the exact same job that they're doing. So it doesn't matter how good, bad, or ugly the job is going to be. If your crew leader is in that ditch shoveling whatever it is that they need to shovel, then the rest of the guys are going to follow. So that's the biggest thing, is try to find a crew leader that's going to lead through example, as opposed to somebody that's going to bark orders, because barking orders is not really leadership. It's barking orders.
Yeah, I think you're spot on with that. That's I've always found the guys that lead my crew are always the hardest working guys. They're the guys that are got their boots on the ground. They're the guys that are out there and they're doing the work and they're showing the other guys how to work correctly. I mean, that's as you watch your crew, if you're looking and trying to pick out a crew leader, I'd say it's not necessarily the amount of time that someone has been there. If they've been there longer, doesn't mean that they're better at that job. It is, like you said, it's the guy who's hardworking, who isn't standing around. He doesn't have to be told every single thing that needs to be done. He's already looking for the next thing that needs to be done and doing it and showing. And like you're saying, leading by example. That's the best way to find your best crew lead, is the guy who wants it the most, the guy who's working hard. And that's how I think you're right on with that.
Yeah, like you were saying, how it's not necessarily the guy that's been there the longest, because a lot of employees are happy just being the cog in the wheel. That they don't want the leadership. They just want to show up, do their job every day, and they don't have the passion or whatever that a leader is going to exude. I guess they just want to show up, do the job, and just get through the day without the extra responsibility, I guess.
Yeah.
Should we base it? That's a good one. So how do you do that, Brian? Do you pay salary or by the hour? And if you pay by the hour, do you do overtime? Do you offer time and a half? How's that work?
So, I mean, I not only as a company have weighed both of these options out, but as an employee when I was younger, I've been on both sides of this, both salary and hourly. Um, what I find, I think in our industry, realistically, hourly is a much better way to go for the guys and for the bosses, for the employers themselves. Um, I think the problem you run into is that the work that we do is so varied, and you don't have a set schedule. With a salary guy, if I was going to pay someone salary, I'd really be looking to get a consistent, whatever it is, say 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, and then I could establish a salary rate. But I mean, in our industry, that's just not how it works. And so, you say you've got, part of the year you're working 5 days a week, 10 to 12 hours a day. And if that guy's on salary, he's going to feel like he's getting ripped off. And then same thing goes the other way in the wintertime. If you're working 3 days a week, then you're going to feel like you're getting ripped off paying a salary guy. For me personally, it's always worked better to have the hourly. That way, guys, they work the hours, they have a drive to work more hours, and they get paid for more hours that they work. And when they don't work, you're not putting out more money that you don't have. Um, like I said, for me, I prefer hourly. It works out great for me and my crew. I like to give my guys bonuses when we can, treat them well, buy them boots, buy them jackets, do everything you can for your guys and treat them the best you can. And then just, make their hourly rate worth it.
My question, I'll toss this up to either one of y'all that may have an answer for it. Like, Mike, you work year round with snow removal whenever you're not doing the lawn care stuff. But me, down south, I don't do snow removal. So how would you retain an employee seasonal work? So I'll work through December, but then January and February, that's my 2 months off. And then, of course, I'll kick it back in March. So how can I keep good help around through those 2 dead months? Was there would a salary option work in that scenario? Or you see what I'm saying? Do they just draw unemployment for 2 months? How could you finagle that situation?
There could be a possibility too to do kind of a hybrid of a thing. First off, even during your dead time, there's always something to be able to do typically. I mean, there's something maintenance that has to be done, cleaning that's got to be done, something that's happening with the business that you could literally just have the employee do instead of doing yourself. And that will kind of tick them up if you can manage to have enough to do during the off season to keep them there for 8 hours or even 6 hours or something like that, or just pay them a salary rate and like, hey, come in and do these projects every so often, and then they're still getting their kind of full pay, I guess you can say, during that off season. Then you do an hourly in the rest of the season. But one of the things that I haven't been mentioning, we always think hourly or salary, but one of I know Mike Andes talks a lot about this with merit pay, pay per job per se. So they go out and mow so many lawns that day, they're going to make X amount of dollars for each lawn, based on what the profits are and things like that. So that's something to kind of throw into the mix. As far as hourly or salary, that's going to be a business by business,
Right.
area by area thing. I know personally, if I was working in lawn care and somebody's saying I was going to get paid salary, I would be like, no, not doing it. Because I know I'm going to be working all the weekends. I'm going to be working 80-hour days,
Yep.
and I'm
Yeah.
going to be on salary. So I personally, I would not take that job. Now, if it was an office position, I might consider a salary job, thinking that, okay, I'll just have to maybe put an extra hour when something urgent happens or something at the end of the day. But I would never take a salaried position as a out in the field doing lawn and landscape.
Yeah.
That it's kind of like a rented mule, I guess, is what somebody may feel like if they take a salary position in lawn care. Just going to work it to death, and then all right, you're done. I was just looking at it as an aspect where I am dead a couple of months, but I would like to bring on employees. But what am I going to do with them for those 2 months that I'm kind of dead in the water? But I would have to save up for the rainy day, I guess, to keep those guys around throughout the year.
So this is a great question from Landscapes by Acme. We do that a lot. So in our area, that's one I would say. If you work for BL Landscapes, that is a big perk. Is that I take the guys to lunch quite a bit. We don't necessarily. My guys are hard workers, and we don't necessarily take lunch every day. But it just kind of, you could see it in the guys' faces, and so we do. I buy lunches quite a bit. Buy snacks in the morning sometimes. In the summertime, obviously, try to keep drinks available at all times. Keep guys hydrated. I mean, we don't get very hot here, but still, still nice to keep the guys hydrated. So that's definitely something that I think is great to do for your guys.
Yeah,
Well,
make sure.
No, go
Make
ahead,
sure
Mike.
though, if you're doing something special for lunch, you're actually buying lunch. This happened
Yeah.
at my wife's work recently. They had a special lunch with all these games and everything, and they said, "Bring your own lunch." I'm like, "You're doing the special event, and you're not even gonna give us food."
Yeah.
So if you're gonna do something special, make sure you're providing food.
Yeah, I think food is a good way to is a good incentive for your guys. It brings the guys together. For me, like I said, our guys, we're normally working from the time we get to the job site to the time we leave. We don't take breaks, don't take lunch breaks on a regular basis. So it is nice when the guys are working hard, and everyone needs a break to stop and get some food and sit around and talk, and just the camaraderie there is a good thing. It's a good builder for your crew.
So what I've found that in lawn mowing, you've got to keep at some point. You got to throw them some food if a guy's running a weed eater all day, because you can just watch their performance just kind of slowly start to dip towards the later in the day. But like you, I've got a part-time helper that helps me out sometimes, and for the most part, like, I pack my lunch every day. It's just a money saver for me. I've got a cooler with lunch and stuff, but I find whenever he's running with me, we do tend to eat out more. But at what point does providing lunch is expected to? It's a perk. And then you got to think about, well, he's costing this much per hour, then this much per day for Gatorades, waters, this sort of thing, and on top of that, buying lunch every day. How would you juggle that, Mike? Well, what avenue do you go down to on that?
Honestly, I almost feel like in this particular business, providing water is almost necessary.
Right.
You want to make sure all your guys are hydrated and everything. And if you're not buying bottled water for them or something like that, make sure they got a cooler on the truck that has water in it that they can fill up from the tap, so that they can always stay hydrated. So, making sure they got water is definitely, I almost think, mandatory in this business once you start getting into the summer, that hot heat of the summer. Excuse me. So that would be one of those things too. And packing a lunch for you guys. I mean, I guess if you eat out in the field all the time, you don't have a designated break room per se. That might be actually a pretty decent option, just to pack lunches and give those to the guys for the day. Hey, we're buying lunch. Here it is. If you don't have like a designated lunchroom or something like that you can go, or if you're not going to send them to a restaurant and say, we'll buy you lunch over here, meet here for lunch, kind of a thing. So I would say that actually would probably be a pretty good perk to do that. One of the things that I always commented about this, like, it's kind of really weird, because I've been on the end of, like, I'm sitting there like, okay, yeah, they bought us a bunch of Domino's pizza, but yet that was like the greatest day in the world, the day they came out and bought us the Domino's pizza. But I'm like, dude, a Domino's pizza is like $5. Is it really? What am I getting here for? All this excitement to show my appreciation. And that's I think one of the biggest things is being able to show that appreciation to your crew members is going to be pivotal in retaining them and keeping them is so that they know, buying a pizza once a year isn't going to do it for them, but a little more often might actually pick it up because I sit there and go, $5 for pizza. Why don't you just put it in my paycheck? That was kind of one of those things too.
Yeah.
Sometimes you get these little gifts, and it's like instead of giving me the gift, just give me the money, and I can get my own thing. So bonuses might be actually a pretty good way of showing the appreciation, even more so than dealing with lunches and buying them lunch and things like that. But yeah, I would say water is, especially in the summer, is almost a necessary thing. Let them know that you actually care enough about them to provide them with water so they can survive the workday. So
I'm still trying to figure out a way to have a mini fridge and a microwave in my enclosed trailer. If I can figure out how to keep that secure, bouncing down the road, that's just hop out at a yard and pop something in the microwave and keep on going.
I just purchased a travel trailer, and I tell you, the biggest problem with the microwave is trying to figure out how to do it on the road without having to plug it in. They all want to work off of 120 volts.
Yeah, I remember a couple years ago there was a fake picture of a DeWalt microwave or a DeWalt coffee pot or something like that going around. And I was like, man, that would actually be such a great idea if I could use my 60-volt batteries and plug those in, or there you go, Echoes. Need to work on a microwave.
There's got to be some way of
job site
running the power into an enclosed trailer like that. So I don't know. Eventually, we'll figure it out. Maybe.
You need quite a bit of battery power and quite a bit of an inverter in order to run a microwave.
That's what I was gonna say. A big inverter.
So, whenever you had your first crew, Brian, did this stuff evolve over time, or have you been doing it since you started out?
It definitely. I would say definitely an evolution for sure. When I first started out, it was just me and one other guy. We worked together for a long time. And then it kind of got to the point where the company evolved and we were doing enough work where both physically and mentally it was time to hire another guy. And so, I mean, that's kind of how I grew. It wasn't like I went out and hired 10 guys all at once. We kind of went from one guy to having 2 guys working with me, and then 3 guys, and then 4 guys. Right now I currently have a crew of 5 guys, 4 guys and a gal. And that is a really good fit for me right now. I've been at a place where I've had 8 guys working for me, more than that. And, I think it's kind of one of those things where you just have to figure that out for yourself for each company on how many guys makes sense. I prefer to run just one crew. I don't like to have multiple crews out there. It doesn't make sense in my area where I'm at. So for me, like I said, we've been up to where we had 8 guys and it was too many guys, and 5 is a good fit. 5 guys on a small job, I can keep them all busy. On a big job, we have plenty of manpower to keep everything going. So like I said, I think that's a case by case situation where you just kind of have to feel it out as you grow. And when you think you need to grow more, then start looking for another guy. I think the big thing for me is I never wanted to take on more guys than I could keep busy year round. We work 12 months of the year here. And so I didn't want to hire guys that I could only keep busy in the summer and then in winter have to lay everyone off, So I think that was a big important thing too, is just to kind of figure out what you need to get the job done. And for me, like I said, I think running lean and running smaller crews is a great way to go. You get into huge crews with a bunch of guys, and it's it's a lot of headache. It's a lot of money going out, and it's really hard to keep control of your quality. So I think until you can grow your company and grow good leaders that can lead other guys and keep that quality level up, that, like I said, you just kind of go as you need to go. And I would say the best suggestion is don't take on a bunch of guys when you're not ready to, because then, it's a lot worse having to lay people off.
Well, let's tackle one more topic since this is tips for team management, because all families have this, and that is a quarrel. So, and I've dealt with it in retail and stuff like that, other avenues through my various careers. But how do you deal with team strife if that arises in this type of business?
For
Either
me,
one of y'all, like,
sure, yeah. I was just sorry, I didn't mean to.
No, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, I think for me, I'm a super nice guy, for the most part, and so team quarreling and guys on the crew not getting along is definitely a big challenge, because I mean, really, the only solution to that is to be the boss and step in and draw the line in the sand and say, look, this can't happen on my job site. And for me, it gets to the point where I don't like conflict. I don't, that's one of the most unprofessional things you can see on a job site. I don't want my guys arguing and fighting. If they got something that they need to deal with, they need to deal with it elsewhere. And you got to be the boss. You got to step in there and put it into that. And really, for me, it comes down to, if the guys can't get along, then someone's got to go.
What made me think of that? I was at the bank a couple weeks ago, and a kid actually come up to me asking for a job. And I asked him if he had any experience. He goes, "Yeah, I just got fired by such and such lawn company." And I was like, "Okay, you're telling me this. Why'd you get fired?" And him and his father both worked for the lawn care company, and they got into it.
That can be
And
rough.
the owner fired the son instead of the dad, of course. So, I mean, families have fights. It's going to happen. I was wondering how to deal with that in the lawn care industry, because, we have HR and other aspects. To my knowledge, I don't know any small time lawn crews or landscape crews that have HR riding around in the truck with them.
We joke and say that one of our guys is HR, and he's probably the most non-HR guy ever.
Let's see. All right, guys. Mike, you got anything else you'd like to add to
it? Not really. I know one of the big issues that you have to be also willing to check yourself. I dealt with an issue before at a restaurant where I was a manager, and one of the employees, the store manager, didn't like her, and she made it the duty of all the other managers to basically make her quit. Which I liked the girl personally. She was a really nice girl. I think she was just out there trying to get a job. She was like 16 years old. And I think that's why she didn't want to fire, because she was 16-year-old. She didn't want that on her record. But she's like, okay, I want this, bathroom clean top to bottom, blah, blah, blah. Like, have her scrub the walls and everything. And I'm looking at the mess, because we had an issue in the restaurant where it was a burger place, and the vents actually vented backwards. The two fans were like, one was blowing in, one was blowing out. So, and if restaurants, they typically have the vent in the bathroom hooked up to the same vent as in the kitchen, so it would suck the air out. Well, it was bringing the grease into the bathroom. And I'm looking at this bathroom and the walls and everything. I'm like, she is not doing this by herself. So I was in there helping her scrub the walls. But yeah, one of the things is just even sometimes that can be higher up than you, is some of those issues, and how do you have to deal with those things. And so some of those when you deal with arguments, is just picky, because you could be as an owner or whatever, be the problem that is going after somebody. And so you have to kind of be able to recognize that as an employee as well. Where do you sit in this situation? Are they out to get you? Because I've seen many occasions where companies have been out to get employees to force them to try to quit and just make their lives difficult. So that would be one of the biggest things too, is just, because, if it's an ongoing struggle, really kind of wake up and, okay, maybe I should be looking for a new position somewhere else if you're an employee and it seems like you're being attacked all the time.
I think the problem in this industry is we don't want to try and get people to quit whenever it's so hard to try and get people to work.
Exactly. And that's one of the big things is like, dealing in law and you're not going to you have to be a really bad employee if they're trying to get you to quit.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Because it's difficult to find employees.
Yeah,
so
I think
if you're showing up on time, doing your job, you pretty much, you're going to keep your job. So.
Right. Did you have something, Brian?
Oh, I was just going to say, I think that's a whole subject all in itself. But I think building a team that gets along with each other is probably the hardest part of building a team. I mean, you can find 5 guys that are all super good at what they do, but they might just not work together. And so I think that's a big thing as you build your crew. The crew dynamics and how guys work together makes a huge difference on your productivity and how well your crew functions. I mean, finding guys that get along well and personalities that get along well is a big task, but to me it's super important because it just changes the whole dynamic at work.
My wife and I have to, because I'm always looking for somebody. I'm like, it's hard to find somebody that's a good worker that you're going to want to spend all day in a truck with, that you can trust, that you keep in your truck. And she's like, that you can put up with for 10 hours. How about them putting up with you for 10 hours?
That's what my wife would say too.
That's when you go, honey, I found her. It's you.
Yeah. Yeah, I just can't get her to run a weed eater for some reason. So, well, Brian, Mike, thank you guys so much. Before we sign off for the night, I want to remind everyone to make sure to join us again next Monday, which is May 7th, at the same time, which is 7 p.m. Central. No, it's not the same time, 7 p.m. Eastern, for a one-on-one chat with Pablo from Black Sheep Lawn Care and Scott from Landscape by Acme. You guys will want to definitely check that out. Pablo is just blowing it up on Instagram, and hopefully Scott's going to pick his brain a little bit on what's going on that. But I'd like to thank everybody for joining us tonight, and make sure to follow Echo Means Business on all your social media platforms, Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, all that good stuff. So again, Brian, Mike, thank you guys so much for a great chat tonight. And
thanks for having us.
No, it's my pleasure, and we'll see what those guys get into next week. All right.
Looking forward to it.
Yep, looking forward.
Great.
Thanks for having me.